Hey folks, I'm in western Pennsylvania here in a rural property. We got a dirt road here. This is a video about process-based restoration. That's the best terminology that I've found, the best concept I've found for trying to restore an incised stream, try to reduce erosion, and to do it without a lot of heavy equipment. What we have here is this dirt road. We get a lot of runoff from that hill. Carries a lot of this gravel and sediment. You know, you got limestone rock, dust and sand, fine silt from the clay. Carries it down this hill, especially when you get a really large rain event. Tends to clog up these culvert pipes here. This is a very small culvert pipe. Haven't had a lot of problems with this one here, but the one above it is an issue. I have a little bit of a diversion there. But that water gets carried down the hill in these large rain events, and then this whole hillside up here sheds water down here. This water eventually ends up in the Gulf of Mexico, or west of the Continental Divide. I've done a hell of a lot over here on this one side to deal with runoff, to try to slow down the runoff here a little bit, and to try to block a lot of a lot of sediment and a lot of the leaves and sticks and stuff from coming down here and clogging up this really large culvert pipe. Years past, I've had to clean that thing out a lot. A couple of years ago, I dropped this big maple tree that wasn't really doing anything for the surrounding trees, and blocked all this, threw a lot of debris in behind it, and it's done wonders so far. There's a lot of work done behind it just to kind of block some debris, and it's starting to fill in these kind of incised stream channels. So it's worked out really well. I don't have to really clean that pipe out too much anymore, and that stayed really green in behind it. What I'm excited about is the other side. So this is where that culvert pipe discharges. It's concrete on this side, and this channel down here was pretty badly incised. There was a lot of cutting going on there. Just real quick, this was just done here the other day. All that water that comes off the road cut this out just in the last probably 3 years that it got really bad. So I hand-picked a lot of rock, and that should slow the water down significantly. A lot of the heavier gravel that comes off the road is going to start filling that in, and I think it's eventually going to fill in. Probably going to happen quicker than I think. Down here, this used to be pretty deep, and it's a little mucky right now. This usually flows. We had a really dry summer. A lot of people did this year in this part of the United States. But you know, where I'm standing right now, I should be about a foot lower. Some places 16, 18 inches even lower. And I'm really excited to see the amount of material that's been deposited here. I have no doubts that this largely comes from the road. You know, this is a lot of quarried material that normally would flow downstream and end up, I mean, honestly, down in eventually into the Yauk and into the Mon and the Ohio River, Mississippi, and the Gulf of Mexico. But this spot here, I couldn't really walk across this before. This was quite a drop off, and to have this much material in here is super exciting. I have some grasses and things that are starting to pop up in there. It's pretty dry right now, like I said, but that ground is pretty moist. I leave footprints as I walk through that, but this is just fantastic. And all I do is I just drop some logs in. It really is that simple. Just drop some logs in there to slow the water down, create some turbulence, force the water to drop out some of that sediment. Probably add some oxygen to the water as it's swirling around. That stuff in there, I mean, it's kind of dark and rich, you know, and as grasses and stuff grow in there, that's going to add a lot of carbon down into that soil. You know, it's probably not the best soil, but you know what? I mean, it's not just the road that I'm getting. I'm also getting the detritus and the leaves and, you know, the runoff from up above, you know, all kinds of organic stuff that ends up in there. So, you know, there's no shortage of nutrients. in that soil, I'm sure. You know, although it probably is a lot of limestone rock and sandstone dust and stuff like that. But this is just fantastic. You know, I've noticed it in years past that it's starting to really improve. I started doing this here probably about 4 years ago. You know, with this little monstrosity here, is a pretty large cherry tree that I dropped across. Just kind of doing some version of a beaver dam analog. Wasn't really entirely effective. Started a critter over there. It's frogs and stuff down in here. There never really were before. But yeah, I was doing kind of a beaver dam analog here. You can see the kind of the posts pounded in, just trying to hold some of the material back. I don't know what exactly I was thinking. I was hoping, that's chipmunk. I was hoping that you know, it would hold a lot of material back. And you know what? Honestly, I'm right, because this channel is largely gone. It's hard to even make out where it was. It was a fairly deep, fairly well-defined channel that came down through here, and it's really starting to fill in. There's all kinds of stuff coming up through there. I see a lot of jewelweed and some grasses, and a lot of natives. I'm sure there's some exotic Asian bullshit here, but isn't that everywhere? And as green as this is right now, it's incredible, because this was never green. This was always just kind of, you know, scrubby and I don't want to say dead, but had a lot of brown leaves and stuff down through here. And it's really greening out, because that water is spreading out whenever we do get rain events, and it'll flood this area here. And I think that water is starting to, the water table is starting to come up a bit. So this whole area is changing here, and it's just a matter of, you know, every fall or winter, I'll come through, I'll cut a couple small trees out, you know, kind of open up the canopy a little bit, and chunk that stuff up, whatever I can flop around and put in the stream bed. And I found out pretty quickly that it's really important to weigh that stuff down. You know, you don't just want to put it down in the stream bed, because when you do get a rain event and it does flood, it'll pick those logs up and it'll spread them and carry them downstream. So I try to weigh them down, throw some heavier stuff on top, and keep them in place. And it's largely been effective here in the last 2 years or something, that I've kind of changed my methodology. But one of the problems down through this area with the stratigraphy that I have, there's a lot of clay, but then there's layers of rock, so the water will just kind of randomly disappear and then come out at a lower elevation somewhere. But that's okay. You know, if there's enough sediment and enough material, you know, rooting plants and things like that, that they'll slow that transition down, and maybe even stop it entirely. But the amount of green down through here is just incredible. This was never like this before. This was channelized pretty badly down here. You see how steep this bank is? Starts banking up on the other side. Now, I largely believe that, you know, although there's going to be some natural erosion that's going to take place in any place, we're in Appalachia here. So, I mean, the topography of the land is largely dictated by precipitation, rain events. But for lack of a better term, the raping of this land, for 100 to 150 years of farming land that never really should have been farmed, and largely the animal husbandry that took place that just stripped vegetation away from the areas that were green because they were wet, and you know, it led to a lot of excess erosion, I believe, but I'm not an expert on this stuff anyway. But you know, this spot here, I did do a little heavy equipment work, because we're getting to the property line, and I wanted to create, you know, kind of a pool of water. So I did have some trees that I cut, that I had to, you know, just had extra logs, so I laid them across. I ended up laying a lot of material in here. There's a lot of clay and rock, and wood chips and stuff like that. This whole area will flood in the springtime or any large rain event, and it gets out of the channel. It actually will flood up over the surface here. This whole area will get wet, and that water gets spread out before it ends up crossing the property line. and then you can see the channel. This is kind of what it was like before. You drop down in here, and there was a lot of active erosion, a lot of mineral soil exposure. So, beer bottle. There's a culvert pipe down there that was blocked a few years ago. We had a pretty large rain event, and I didn't realize that culvert, that's not my culvert pipe, that's state property there, but up to that bank, up at the top where that grass is, I'd be up to my shoulders in water right now. So much water in here. It was like a lake. It was incredible. It actually started cresting the top of that bank, and I was worried it was going to wash out. So I did unplug that culvert so the water will flow. I mean, I'd like a lot more restriction than that, but I don't want total restriction. You know, I don't want a flooding event that's going to cause a lot of erosion in a really short period of time. I want, you know, the water to be restricted, backed up, slowed down, and spread out. But, you know, I'm not a beaver, so I'm not around to do all the repairs all the time. I got a full-time job. There's a round bale there. That was a silage bale. I just happen to have access to some old silage bales. Brought them onto the property, and I try to use them in different places to help to plug up spots. It's unsightly. It's kind of ugly. I might take the chainsaw to it and open it up a little bit, but there's a spot down here where it does leak sometimes, so I was trying to plug that a little bit, so I dropped it in there for now. But those really do a lot of good. I've found it's a temporary measure. It's nothing permanent. But I didn't really talk about process-based restoration, but anybody interested can look up PBR. But I mean, I think this is a version of it here. It's just a matter of putting a little restriction in. These aren't well-formed ideas. They're not big projects I'm coming along with a group of people. It's just me. So there's only so much I can do. But if I am cutting some wood, I like a lot of dead wood around. I like the rot and the ecosystem services that come with that rot. And I think it's a great idea to try to put that into the water and create some moisture gradients and some shade and shadow and some places for mold to form, and beetles that like mold, and beetles that like to eat beetles that like mold, and all that happy horse shit. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that. This is just one little project that I'm really, really excited about. What a kind of a tipping point occurred this year. Now, I do recognize that with all this sediment that I have laying in here, some of this is going to wash away in the springtime. You know, this stuff isn't really that solid. Even the few grasses that did form in here aren't going to hold it all back. But I'll continue with that yearly tradition I have of laying some wood in and slowing things down a little bit. Probably going to add some more rock to this, but that's kind of part of the process. You don't just come in and do a project and leave and expect it to maintain itself. You know, it requires regular maintenance and observation, because every situation, I think, is a little bit different. So anyway, if anybody else has access to some water or some erosion issues, or, you know, be as fortunate as we are and have a couple of small vernal streams, you know, this is the kind of stuff that I think humans are built for. We should be managing water. We should be maximizing the, you know, the productive capacity of the ecosystem, help it to maintain itself, and help to repair the rape that our ancestors have committed on this land. So hey, thanks a lot, PBR.